Welcome to The Verdict. Tom Fair is an award-winning trial lawyer who knows there is more to our stories than what you see on the surface. He has built his law firm, Fair Law, into one of the top injury and employment trial firms representing people in California. Join us each week as Tom explores the successes, challenges, and lessons learned from some incredible people. Hit subscribe, follow Fair Law on Facebook and Instagram, and let's get to the verdict. And now, here is your host, Tom Fair.
Welcome to another episode of The Verdict, everyone. We have Genevieve Piturro here today as our guest. She actually left her job as a successful TV marketing executive, picked up a pair of pajamas, and built a nationally known 501c3 nonprofit organization and named it Pajama Program. 2 decades later, Jen educates audiences on how to change their own course. Jen, welcome to The Verdict.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
So I have to just dig right into it. How does somebody who is a successful TV marketing executive, sort of in the corporate world, what prompts you to take this total change in direction and start a nonprofit?
I think the only way I can answer that, because I never thought I would be that person, is when you get that, when you have an aha moment and you hear a voice, there's nobody else in the room, then you pay attention.
So how long were you a marketing executive before this aha voice hit you?
Over a dozen years, 12 years working in Manhattan in the TV syndication business. I always wanted to do that. So that's, that I never veered that off that track for all those years. And I was a typical workaholic single woman in New York, and I thought it was great.
The work that you were doing just over that past decade?
Yes. Over those first 12 years in TV, I thought it was a great job. It was what I always thought I wanted. So
the aha moment, what exactly was it? Because, a lot of us, there are always, not to sound like we're crazy or anything, but there are voices in our head. Some are the ones that are telling us to go do something. Some are the ones that make us feel afraid, and we got to tune those out and just keep going. But what was this aha moment for you?
Well, you're right. I hear those voices too, and I always have. But in a very busy, crazy 12 years, I couldn't remember the last time I had peace and quiet by myself, and I did one afternoon. And I heard in me very clearly, if this is the next 30 years of your life, is this enough? So it wasn't the typical, as you mentioned, doubting or even, exciting, what's the next big thing? It was a real contemplative question that came, I thought, out of nowhere. But, I thought, I wonder how long this voice has been trying to get my attention.
That's interesting. I mean, we get caught up in the hustle and bustle of life sometimes. And I remember being on my own grind and just so focused and tunnel vision. And then I had some time, and that's when it occurred to me, okay, what am I sort of doing with my life? And I've always wanted to start my own law firm, law practice, and build my own business and something myself. And so that voice got stronger and stronger over time until I actually did it. What, for you, how did that transition happen? Because now okay, what am I going to do the next 30 years of my life? So what did you have to do from, being an executive, a marketing executive in TV, and then saying, okay, I'm going to go start a nonprofit? What was that process like?
I wish it was that simple, but it wasn't. I didn't know what to do with the question. And I did soon realize that as a single woman in Manhattan, the traditional Italian upbringing I had didn't jive. My parents expected me to have children. My dad came off the boat from Italy. They were both sort of stunned that I just sort of ran over that whole family thing. And as the first of 4 of their children and a girl, they didn't know what to do with my whole idea of how I wanted to spend my life. And I really bucked the system, and it was hard. And then in that moment, I realized there was something in everything they said and how they lived and taught us that I missed. And the bottom line was children. And I thought there isn't probably any way I would have children right now, but I can bring them into my life. And I thought of a story I'd seen days earlier on the news of police taking a child out of a very difficult situation, shall we say, and the child was being mistreated, and they took the child to an emergency shelter. So I called the police and asked them about these emergency shelters, and they told me where to call, and I did. So I asked them if I could come in at night and maybe read stories to them. I don't know, Tom, how that popped into my head, because there was something else working there, some invisible power. And that's what I did. And I did it over weeks. My love and passion for my day job was really waning because I felt so connected to these children. I felt like human, a soul, combined, a human person and a soul reaching out to these children who I felt were matching that human and that soul need. And I never felt more grounded. So I started to do that more and more. And, I did my job because I needed to pay the bills. I had a mortgage and all of that. But I knew something was coming, and I didn't want to look at what that would be because I really wasn't prepared financially, emotionally, or anything. But when I went to follow the kids after I read with them one night to see how they were sleeping, and they were huddled together on a futon or a couch in one room, they had their clothes on, which were soiled and didn't fit right because this was an emergency situation. They had to sleep, and they were safe, so thank God for that. But I saw in my mind, when I stared at this scene, my mom at our bedtime, sitting at my bed, and it was love and comfort and snacks and laughing and stories and songs. And of course, pajamas. We had pajamas. We had more than enough pajamas. And here they're sleeping in their clothes, and everything else was missing. And it was wrong. My brain was saying, this is all wrong. I wanted to, just grab all the kids and run. So I asked if I could bring pajamas next time. And they thought that was a lovely idea. And I did. So I read to these children the next time. And I started handing out pajamas. And a little girl, most frightened little girl, she just kept shaking her head no, wanted me not to get too close. But she watched me give them to the other kids. And she kept saying no when I tried to give her the pink pajamas I found that would fit her. And finally, she was left by herself and a staff person when all the other kids were taken to the bedroom. I went over and I tried again, and I was gentle. And I tried to have her feel how soft they were. And she leaned in and she asked me, "What are pajamas?"
Wow.
And that was it, Tom. Then any iota of desire I had to go to work the next day was gone. I had to force myself for a while. And all I wanted to do was shop for pajamas and find every child who needed a pair.
That's an incredible story. And it just sort of developed for you and blossomed into doing that work from one moment, feeling compelled to just call the police, station and find out what can I do to help. And then, it's almost like you said, I love how you put it. Two souls connecting and feeling grounded. And it's almost like it just took on a life of its own. And this connection, this human connection, it was the biggest driver of, this nonprofit that you ended up starting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody, it took me a while to tell anyone because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how I'd ever pay my mortgage. I knew my boss knew something was up because I just wasn't the same workaholic person. I made things up. I said I was going away for the weekend, almost every weekend, because I have suitcases in the office that are full of pajamas, but nobody knows that. So it was a long, painful, but I teach and speak now, and I wrote my book because the human connection is the thing that changed it. And going into 2023, that's the most important thing we have to all remember, especially when we're looking for a purpose. And many people are doing that now.
Yeah. Speaking of that book that you have up there, Purpose, Passion, and Pajamas, perfectly put. Can you tell us just a little bit about your book and what it's about?
Yes, sure. A lot of people had asked and confided over the 20 years when I was both founder, I'll always be founder, and executive director of Pajama Program. They wanted to hear my story, and I know why, because they would then say, I'm in a job and I've been, wishing I could have followed my dream, and is it too late? And I would always, always talk to them about the difference in my life night and day. Everything changes when you're on purpose, when you know what you love, because nobody ever asked me that when I was in school or growing up. I don't know if anybody ever asked you, Tom, you have to figure out your purpose before you get stuck in a dead-end job. That wasn't a question anyone was asked. I wasn't asked that. But I ask people, and I talk about it to high school, college, anybody who will listen, or anybody who asks me to address a group, is that makes life worth living. It really does, because if you don't take the time to know what you want to do when you wake up every day, and yes, there are ways to find a way to make a living out of everything. You can find something that gives you your passion back. Because if you don't, 30 years, 40 years, it's a long drudge of a life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You mentioned something earlier with we talked about the voices at the beginning, right, with the aha moment. But, when people are scared of, how am I going to pay my mortgage? Or if you've got a family, how am I going to, pay for them? If I'm going to go, just abandon or change course and not have this job, what we call job security, right? An employer that's paying us, even though we may be unhappy or not satisfied fully. Maybe it's not an unhappy thing, but something is missing. And then to be able to have the courage to go do something else. What was that like, figuring out the sort of pragmatic or practical aspect of it? So, you had this fear initially, but clearly here you are doing amazing. You've got a book, you've helped so many children. We'll touch on, you actually got to meet and work with Oprah, which is amazing. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But how was that transition for you?
It was difficult because it wasn't a standard job. It wasn't like I said, I really want to teach, or I really want to sing, or I really want to cook. Those are known entities, right? Those are known careers, and there's a path. I knew nothing about starting a nonprofit, and I didn't know that I would do that. I just saw the children who are sleeping in their clothes, who broke my heart, because how can you keep nightmares from these kids? I can't imagine. I mean, I hate having a nightmare. I'm an adult. Everyone hates nightmares. Can you imagine a child so afraid, alone, just taken away from any place that was familiar, just taken from place? I mean, it's just a heartbreaking situation. So the reason that it became a nonprofit was because a little article came out in a national magazine, Parenting, and it was so small, but that story about that little girl just touched so many people that thousands of boxes started to arrive at my one bedroom co-op.
Wow.
The letters and the notes, one of them said, please give us your 501c3 so we can give you a grant. Tom, I didn't know what a 501c3 was. And that's when I looked at everything and I said, this is a responsibility, and I'm taking this on, and I better find out what this thing is, because I'm going to need money. And really, I had never said to anyone before, if I want to start a nonprofit, what do I do? And no one ever said that to me, because I was really tight-lipped. I was afraid that I would be shut down, and I was embarrassed to say, I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to do this, since I was already established. So I had a lot of conflicting feelings, which I talk about in my book. And that's why I said, and we both said, you said it too, the human connection. I speak about it. It saved me.
I've heard this come out, like, just in the short time hearing your story, all of the challenges, but you kept it to yourself. There's a fear that people might judge you. What is your work going to think? What is your family going to think? Then the practical stuff. How are you going to pay your mortgage, which I just asked you, and then you just the unknown of all of this. Like, you're like, oh, I didn't even know I got to do a nonprofit. I didn't know I have to do a 501c3. And so all of these things can seem like insurmountable challenges where it's like, how am I going to get over this? But then the beginning word of your book and then the second one are the two, to me, are the two most important driving forces that are going to get you through all of those obstacles and all of those questions and all of that judgment.
You're right. And I learned it, I learned it every step of the way. I tell people, your purpose, your passion is going to do exactly what you said, Tom, but no one said that to me. I found it out backwards. I found it out after I just wouldn't stop. I was unrelenting. And when I was at my wit's end and I had to tell somebody and I had to ask for help, it was excruciatingly painful. I was an adult. I was successful. How do you say job and give pajamas to kids and sound like, somebody you want to support?
Are you rational?
And I did it. I said, I tried it out on one semi-friend. She was a friend, not a good friend, but a friend. I tried to find somebody in the middle so I wouldn't be devastated. And, it'd be great if she had what I hoped, an attitude of, oh, I'll help you. She shot me right down. Am I crazy? What am I doing? I'm not saving their lives. How am I going to pay my mortgage? I work so long. Can't you just do this once a week? I mean, it was very hard. And I have nobody to blame but me for not taking a chance on others.
That was this friend that you even sort of gauged, is this the person you told first about what you were doing?
Yep.
Who was the first person that actually, other than yourself, because clearly you were believing in yourself, but who was the person that you told where you got a lot of acceptance, or you started seeing that people believed in what you were doing?
Well, I was single, then I met a nice man. And I thought, before we go any farther here, after a month or two, I said, I better tell him what I'm thinking, because he thinks that, if we go any further, we're going to be a two income, and I can't promise that. And I don't expect him to take that on. And I said pretty much what I said to her. Look, I have to tell you, I've been doing this and I have to find a way. I have to quit my job, but I know I don't have any money for my mortgage, but I want to do this. And he said, go for it. And to this day, I married him. To
I was
this
going to
day,
say, that sounds like the one.
yeah. And in my book, I make light of it because there were so many hard times, and I put him through so much. I mean, I was obsessed. I was supposed to be a new wife, and I did on my my off hours because my life was pajamas. And then I told my mom, and I told my dad, and they were divorced. And my dad was very worried, but still supportive, but worried. And my mom said, I know you'll do it, but I know you'll figure it out. So that's, I say, find your cheerleaders, because that's who's going to hoist you up when you fall.
Yeah. I mean, that's an amazing story, just of two people. I mean, you have this, when you told me the story about your connection with these children, and in particular, that girl that just didn't even know what pajamas were, but then how this somehow leads you to find somebody that you could spend your life with. And it's right there. The minute they said, oh, I support you, go for it. Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to preempt it in case you two weren't together, but I was like, oh, this must have been the person that you ended up getting married with, or this guy's still around, and it sounds amazing. And to have that support.
Yeah. It's once in a lifetime, when you hear that. And I know, because when I was asked early on about how to change careers, I talked to a lot of women who did not have that support. And that was one of the obstacles. They didn't have somebody that said, go for it. They had somebody that said, well, I don't know how we're going to make that work. So I don't think so.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, I think it's tough already for women who may want to have a family, who are trying to balance that with a career. Then this idea of switching an entire career. I mean, right? You get into what some may see as maybe a male-dominated profession, right? And making it there, and then going a totally different direction, and just the lack of support systems for people, or at least seemingly, right? Just once you find it, it can be a total game changer for people, and give them, what they need to do the things that are going to make them have a fulfilling life.
Right, right. And we've all come out of these last couple of years changed, and reevaluating our lives, reevaluating our choices. And it's still tricky for some people to find that human connection again, but most people want it more than ever, and so they are taking chances, and we're all trying to find each other again. And I think that that's a positive thing for leaders, for entrepreneurs, for children who've been alone for a couple of years. I mean, it's just it's a difficult, it can be a difficult situation.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really positive way of looking at where we are, and what we've been through as a society, as a nation, as really as humans across the globe, is this idea that we need this human connection. And that may be something that the pandemic has brought out as something that we've always needed, that we actually continually need. But now more and more people are actually realizing it, whether it was because of the pandemic or not. But one can argue that this is something that we need always, and it's been lacking. And this is a great opportunity, especially in this age of sort of entrepreneurialism. I mean, with, you can market, social media, there's so many tools at the disposal of people to actually go and do what they love and want. I mean, look, here we are, we're doing a podcast. You're talking to a trial lawyer in California, right? I'm talking to someone who's from New York and started this amazing nonprofit to help kids. And we're doing it over Zoom. You didn't have to fly out, or I didn't have to fly out to you. So we have so much at our disposal to be able to do the things that we're passionate about.
And I think it's very interesting if we think about wearing masks. For 2 years, we were forced to look in each other's eyes. We couldn't read lips. Sometimes it wasn't clear with the mask, so we didn't rely just on our ears. We looked in each other's eyes. We wanted to, because we were looking for compassion, kindness, that connection. But I think it was very telling and just very beautiful that we were almost forced to look each other in the eye.
That's a really interesting observation. And there's all sorts of sayings about, the eyes, the windows to somebody's soul.
Right.
I mean,
somebody was manipulating this, I think. Somebody wonderful.
It's interesting. As a trial lawyer, we're constantly trying to look at people and find a way to connect to them, and see how they're feeling. And with that mask, you lose a huge part of reading somebody's face. And at the end of the day, there's so much of our communication is nonverbal. And so I think it forced people like myself to connect with others in different ways, to listen to their tone of voice. If I could hear that they're saying something and it sounds like they're not having a good day, right? You could hear it. So there's it's a very monotone, or there's just a lower, sort of tone to it, but they're trying to be positive about it. So it did force us to look at other things and almost connect in other ways. But where we are now, it's just an amazing opportunity. I guess, let me ask you this: with all that you've done, what is something that you wish you would have known early on, that if you only knew this, things would have been a lot smoother or easier, and maybe something that can help other folks that are also trying to do something or switch out of a career that they may not find all that fulfilling?
Well, that's a good question, because there are practical things. I am not a saver. I buy shoes. So that didn't help when I was looking at the last amount of money for the one final mortgage payment that I could pay. That led, that was causing me sleepless nights and things. But I find that it seems to be common in entrepreneurs. No, I found comfort in those who, just go by the skin of our teeth sometimes. I think I think I would stick with the human connection. I think if I had asked for help a lot earlier, I would have been better off. But because I didn't, and I was ashamed and embarrassed, it really stifled and took me longer to ask, do you have any idea what I can do with this? And I think I did myself harm. So I tell people now, tell everybody what your dream is. Ask everybody for that 6 degrees of separation. Trust yourself, meditate. I wish I had meditated. The man I married teaches meditation. So he gets the stillness in us. And I tell people, that's how you hear your real self. It's not out here. That doesn't have anything to do with what other people say. It has to do with what you say to yourself. So I think it's that sort of support that you get by listening to your heart voice, and that human connection that you have to take a chance on.
I love that. All of it. I mean, that's actually really, really good advice for everything, including starting, your own business or a nonprofit. The idea of asking for help is a hard thing. I mean, I have a hard time doing that, and it's just like, why am I so afraid to ask somebody for help? And I wonder, does it make me look weak? And that's when all the judgment for myself, at least, comes in. And it's like, you'd be so surprised. You ask somebody for help, you're a little bit vulnerable. Somebody's like, oh yeah, I really want to help. I mean, if somebody doesn't want to help, they don't want to help. But then you find the people that do, and it's like an amazing connection. And all of a sudden, you've got this synergy with this person, and you can, work on it together and build something.
Yes, I agree. And people want to help. We want to feel useful. We want to feel needed. So we're denying somebody else of that connection too.
Yeah, that's interesting. We are. There's people out there that just want to do that. So why deny them? I mean, just bring them into our lives.
Yeah. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? So somebody thinks, you're a dodo. Okay. I've had worse people think worse of me, and I've done okay. So,
and sometimes the people you think actually like you think that anyway.
Yeah. And maybe you'll make a new friend.
Right.
The other side.
So I wanted to, you somehow got connected with Oprah, and she actually interviewed you. Can you just tell us how that happened and what that was like?
Yes. It was life-changing. I got a call from a producer there who said, this is so-and-so from the Oprah Winfrey Show. Do you have a minute? Exactly. I'm by myself. I'm looking around, and my half of my brain is going crazy, and the other half is trying to talk it off the ledge and telling it to calm down, speak like a normal person, because otherwise you make a fool of yourself. And so I did, and I spoke like a normal person, and the other half of me was very proud. And didn't tell anyone. For 2 weeks, she called asking more questions, and I didn't say anything to anybody, because you don't want to tell anyone that you're being interviewed and then you don't get on. It's like, they didn't pick me. I couldn't do that, So they said that people had been writing in about this lady giving pajamas out, and I think it just touched somebody, that it must have touched Oprah, because then they invited me on, and it was an incredible show. I to watch it, everybody to watch it. It's on YouTube. You can find it, put my name in. It's an incredible to the human connection. And I'm not talking about Oprah. Oprah facilitated what happened. But when you see what happened, your heart will fill with joy and hope for all of us.
Yeah. What did you said she facilitated some, and it wasn't just her, but it was all these other people and sort of the human connection.
Right.
What was she able to facilitate?
You got to watch it.
Okay, we're going to keep it a secret.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's a great show. It's worth it. And it aired 3 times because the TV audience reaction was crazy. So it aired, and then a clip of it was in her final show, and it's still rerun on her network and somewhere else, because once in a while people will tell me they saw the episode somewhere.
So all our listeners will have to go and watch it, and I think it'll probably be the perfect episode, especially with Thanksgiving right around the corner and Christmas.
They did air it.
Too far after.
They did air it the second time in December. Yes.
I love it. In terms of just that show in general, did you stay in contact with any audience members, or do you still get letters from any of them?
Yes, I'm still in contact with some. Oprah was very supportive. Some of the people who started chapters for us, I'm still in touch with. Wow. We have lots of people I'm still in touch with who turned out to be chapter presidents because they watched it on TV, not necessarily just in the audience in person. So a lot of the people that are still volunteering for Pajama Program are from the Oprah days.
And this, from having a voice tell you that you have to do something, you've inspired people across the nation who are now doing the work or the same or similar type of work that you're doing. I mean, that's, I guess, how strong this human connection is, from the aha voice to this reading stories to these children, to that girl that didn't know what pajamas, were. And I mean, that's how powerful passion and purpose is.
Yes. I was just a channel. It was the little girl. She, every time I still, when I tell the story, I feel like the listener hears a little girl's voice, can see her, can immediately feel what it must have been like, as if they were standing there and a little girl asked them the question. I think she had power. And there were other, like I said, other forces at work to join us together for a simple question that I could never have expected. No one could ever have expected that question from her. I mean, lots of questions. Do you have food? Do you have clothes? Can you take me home? I mean, there are a million questions I could have guessed a little girl in an emergency shelter would have asked me, but not that one. Yeah. And I think, people say, like you were kind to say that I could inspire people. And of course I want to do that, but people would say, like, oh, look at the power of one. You're one person, and I thought the same thing, not about me. I thought about like Oprah and Einstein. Those people were lucky enough to find their purpose, and they were one person that changed the world. Even today, we have people who are one person changing the world. But I think they would all agree with me. It's not the power of one that changes things. It's the power of one another that moves mountains and moves people. And that's what we have to do. We have to move people.
That's first of all, I love to play on. I love play on words, and it is the power of one another. And you made me think right now, which is good. I enjoy that. But this idea that, because people are looking at you and they're saying, okay, you did this. And I wonder if by unlocking your heart or unlocking your passion, like you almost become this voice, may not even be the right word, because it's not even just vocal. It's like, it's more than just the voice. It's like every sense, or maybe even like a sixth sense or something, but you sort of open up and maybe it's the human connection, but by you allowing yourself to follow, what you wanted to do, or by having this connection with this little girl, you all of a sudden become this energy source, or this person that can now connect one another, can connect all these people. And that's where all this power comes from, and where all these people are like, I want to donate pajamas. I want to do this. I want to help. I want to make a difference. I want to live a life of purpose. So it just made me think that maybe you just become a source of all of this. I mean,
yeah, I think I'm just a vehicle, conduit, whatever you want to say, because
we don't want to diminish but I was trying to find the right words, because I'm like, what is it?
Yeah. There's no practical answer, I don't think, to that question, because there's so many things that happen that were just seem like a miracle, or seem like a lightning bolt and took off, or changed something, or was the one missing piece of a puzzle, and then everything fell. There's so many of those things, and we have to be aware that we can be part of that mystery and beauty together, because that's how we build things. That's how we grow. That's how we love. That's how we make beauty. And I think we've been so wrapped up in the day to day, mostly because a lot of us are just in jobs, and you get to a point that the excitement wears off.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then the magic wears off too. And that's sad.
Yeah. No, that's true. And I think everyone has the opportunity to be in a position like yourself, to be for lack of better terms, a conduit, or just, some vehicle for something beautiful to be built.
Yeah,
Um,
just a connector. We're all connectors.
yeah, yeah, that's almost a better, that I like that. We all have the capacity to be
Right.
connectors, and to bring so many people together. Um, with the nonprofit, where do you see, what does the future look like? What's the next 5 to 10 years look like for it?
Well, after 20 years of being executive director as well as founder, I knew, since I'd been asked to speak and I was wanted to write a book, that was my plan B, my next purpose, to share what I learned, because so many people wanted to, as the years went on, take a chance on themselves and wanted some support and help. And so I wanted to write a tell-all book. Really, I tell the frightening times, I tell the difficult times, I tell the times I cried, I tell the times I, begged God, the universe, one more day, one more dollar. And I think people say it helps to hear that, so that they don't feel alone when they feel despair and they've taken a chance on themselves. So we hired an executive director. So I passed the baton on to a woman who is the president of our board, Jamie, and she's doing a great job. So she is doing that, and I make my living now speaking and coaching and teaching, and with my book, and I'll write a second book. So I took another chance on myself, and it's still scary. It doesn't take any fear away if you've done it once. I think any entrepreneur will say, it's still scary to try something new, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to, keep it on.
Yeah. Are you speaking now? Are you still based out of New York, or?
Yes, I live in New York, and I speak, I just came back from Ohio. 2 weeks before that, I was in Omaha. I speak locally. I speak anywhere in the US.
Wow. And for the chapters, I mean, we started talking about, there was boxes of pajamas coming into, your apartment.
Yeah.
So are you have chapters all across the nation?
Yes, we do. We have, everything stays local. So if someone does a drive in Topeka, then we have the list of children in Topeka who are on our wait list, and every city is like that. So we will just turn around and tell you where they're needed in your area. Yep.
And if someone, I mean, listening, they want to somehow participate, or to see what their options are, what are the opportunities for participating, and to any extent, whether it's donating pajamas or facilitating a drive, where would they go to find that information?
Yes, they go to pajamaprogram.org, pajamaprogram.org.
Okay, and that would have all the information that they
All
need.
the information on the nonprofit. Yep.
Well, I have to say, you have an incredible story, and it's so appropriate that we're talking now with the holidays. And just for our listeners, is there anything that you would want to leave them with, in light of all that you've learned and all that you've done?
We have to just keep giving back and paying it forward. So if someone wants to connect and wants to brainstorm, just wants an ear, you can find me at my website, GenevievePiturro.com, and I will happily listen and offer my 2 cents and share and support.
Genevieve, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. You've given me the feels now, and I'm wondering what's the next thing that I want to do, other than serving others through my law practice. So thanks again for sharing your incredible story, and thanks for all the lives you've touched and changed.
Oh, thank you for this invitation, Tom. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Likewise.